for food. Hello.
Hi.
I was just introducing you. So I was talking how, well, first of all, Daisuke, hello, Duke of Nikko.
Hi. You
We'll talk about
pronounced my name
I know
perfectly,
yeah,
Daisuke.
I don't think it's that difficult, but it's funny because when I like in Russia, my name is pronounced as Irina, but in
Irina.
America nobody could say that, so it became Irina, and now it's like it
Uh-huh.
sounds strange to even attempt it. So I'm sure like you have a similar experience with your name.
Yeah,
Somehow
did
it's
you
shocking.
know there was once a Japanese baseball player at Red Sox?
Right.
His name was Daisuke
So that
Matsuzaka.
probably made it easier for people to figure out
Yeah.
your name, how to pronounce your name. Well, I
Uh-huh.
was talking about how like we've met on Instagram, and what caught my attention is like I'm obsessed with brioche, but then I saw that you design double knitting. And in
Mm-hmm.
theory, right, like my engineering mind tells me that it should be easy enough to go from brioche to double knitting. In
Yeah.
reality, I cannot master it. I don't know what's going on. Like I've tried, I actually got your, I think it was the pot holder or something. Like you had the free pattern, and I just figure I'm gonna give it a try and like
Uh-huh.
learn how to do it. And after like several attempts, I sort of was like, okay, I'll come back to you.
Yeah, it's probably
Yes,
this
that's
one.
yeah,
Oh yeah,
right.
this is really, really advanced because it has different designs on
It's different
each
symbol on
side.
different side. Yeah.
So this is super difficult. But
So let's
the,
let's start with that. Let's start with how did you actually got into the double knitting, because I find that part like really fascinating. Because majority
yeah,
of your designs are double knitting, right?
yes, I'm obsessed with double knitting. So I first learned about it on Craftsy, the
Okay,
online course.
right.
There were two instructors teaching double knitting. One is Lucy Neatby.
Mm-hmm.
She's from Canada. And the other one is Alastair Post Gwyn. And I took both of their classes and I was fascinated.
Right.
Um, and I think that was 2014 or so.
So at that point, you like knitting for just what 3 4 years, and suddenly you decide to like take these classes, right?
Yeah,
And you becoming a
yeah.
designer in double knitting. What
I,
did you
I,
knit
I
prior
didn't
to that?
I didn't design right away, but yeah, I started knitting in 2010.
Right.
And 2011, my husband and I moved to New York City, and New York City was the place I really got into the rabbit hole of knitting.
Right.
Vogue Knitting Live in January was my main source of excitement for a few years.
Right.
But then I discovered Craftsy and I took a bunch of classes online. And then I also started taking classes at Vogue Knitting Live and started to getting to know instructors and designers and started following them and going to their events. And then eventually I started designing my own. That
So like
was in
now you moved
2019.
to Memphis, right? Like you moved to
Yes.
Memphis a few years ago. So do you like miss it terribly, or it just coincided with COVID, so it's all sort of became one big mess and you don't know what you miss exactly?
Yeah, so we moved to Memphis in January of last year. So it was like 2 months
Right before.
before the
Right.
pandemic. I guess for a while, I missed New York City, the hustle and bustle and all crazy things that happen in New York City don't happen in Memphis. Memphis is very laid back, slow,
Right.
uh, but
Does
people are
that drive you
friendly.
mad, or like are you like suddenly finally like relaxing and finding it meditative?
Yeah, so it was an adjustment, but it was a good change for me. I was enjoying the slower pace and I immediately found a knitting group in Memphis, so I started going there. We were
Right.
meeting face to face until March or so. So yeah.
Do you find it very different, like community-wise, people in New York? I mean, I'm sure, like, with Club Cummings and everything, like you're talking
Hmm.
about the hipsters and the, like the high society of the knitters of New York, like versus who is the knitters in Memphis? Like, is it a
Uh,
different crowd, or is it like you still feel the same?
yes and no. Yeah, New York City, there are a lot of hipster knitters, but also there are other, what you would traditionally visualize,
Right.
elderly. Um, I still do a weekly Zoom call with a bunch of elderly Jewish women in New York
Oh,
City,
nice. Nice.
and they used to come to Club Coming too. So
Right.
it's not just a hipster world. It's a very mixed, diverse
Oh,
crowd.
I find those like old Jewish ladies, they can be very hipster.
Yeah, I
They're
think you're
actually
right
into the
too.
brioche and the whole thing.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, they're very open to
tell me a
new
little
things.
bit, like when you started, like your first design, right?
Mhm.
It's a beer cozy. Is there a
Yes.
special connection in your heart with the beer? Like, we'll keep the gay for just a second aside, right?
Uh-huh.
Is that
Yeah,
like why beer cozy?
I love beer,
Is there a
as you can
favorite
imagine.
one? Like, can you like teach me like what's your favorites?
Um, well, a lot of the things I like is the local beer. I started becoming a beer fan in Michigan
Okay.
when I was living in Detroit, and Detroit has a lot of local breweries, and Motor City Brewing Works was my favorite. I used to live right next to it, so
Right.
one year I checked my credit card invoice and found out that 7% of my spending goes to that brewery.
Well, then
So
it
I love
makes
beer.
perfect sense that you're making the first design as a beer cozy.
Yeah, so it's a everyday accessory for me.
Right.
I use it every day to drink beer.
But
And
that
Memphis,
beer cozy, like it seems simple enough, but it's actually not, right?
right? It's similar to the coaster. It
Right.
has different designs on each side. They look exactly the same. You can read gay, and the reverse side, you can also read gay. But if you think about it, it's not really
Like mirror
reversed.
image. Yeah.
It's not a mirrored image. If it's mirrored, you wouldn't be able to read this.
Right.
Um, so it's
So how
kind
did you,
of,
so was that part of that class that you took, or is that
yeah,
something like you progressed with the double knitting, you learn more, and then as you learn more, you decided to go into design?
it was part of the class provided by Alastair Post-Quinn on Craftsy.
Okay.
So you can still take that class, or he also teaches often at places like Vogue Knitting Live and Stitches. And if you go to his websites, I think he also teaches on his own platform too.
Right.
Uh,
Um, when you meet knitters, right, do you gravitate to those who are into double knitting, or are you more fascinated with like different techniques and you're like, oh, I should learn that as well?
yeah,
Like what
most of the,
attracts you? Or like when you're on Instagram, right, and you're scrolling through
mhm.
Instagram, what catches your attention? Like who do you like, oh,
I'm
I want to talk to
attracted
this person?
to I'm attracted to color work in general. So sadly, there aren't that many double knitting designers out there yet.
Right.
So most of the people I notice on Instagram are either stranded knitters or intarsia or mosaic knitting.
Yeah, mosaic is
Uh,
like super popular now. So
yeah, and mosaic is much easier than
right.
intarsia or double knitting. So
When you do the meet and greet or whatever Zoom sessions now with other knitters, do they ever ask you to teach them? Like, have you found yourself giving the master classes on Zoom all of a sudden without planning to do that?
So it's funny. One of the elderly Jewish ladies in New York City asked me to go to her synagogue one day and teach her and her friends how to double knit. So I went there and tried teaching, um, and I think they had a good time, but they were struggling a little bit too because they
I
were
would love
beginner
a Zoom
knitters.
master class from you one day, just like an hour. I would love that. Like, I feel like I'm almost there, but like every once in a while, my float somehow finds itself in front of
Hmm.
the letter or behind, like something is going off, and I'm like, okay, how did I mess it up? Like it was going so smoothly, and then like, but I would be very interested in doing a session with you.
Right. I often hear from other double knitters that when things are going right, it's great. But once you hit a roadblock or a mistake, it's very hard to recover from your
Right.
mistake.
I feel like
So,
it's like the same with brioche. Like when I learned brioche first, it took me
yeah.
like I was talking to Julie Knits in Paris about it because it took me 18 times to actually like
Hmm.
knit it and then unravel it because I would make a mistake and I wouldn't know how to fix it. And then
Uh-huh.
suddenly I saw a video that she posted where she shows how to fix brioche mistakes, and I'm like, dude, that was like so easy. Like, why didn't I see that? You know, so I'm sure it's the same with double knitting. So I'm determined to like learn it one day.
Hmm.
So you know,
Yeah.
talk
Well,
about like
funny
what
story.
inspires you in your patterns. Like, how do you come up with the designs? Is that like, do you have some sort of creative process that something like you wake up at night and you thought of an idea, or is that something you plan ahead? Like next month, I'm gonna work on pattern for this thing or something.
So a lot of my designs involve Japanese characters, Japanese kanji, and there are thousands of different characters, but
Mm-hmm.
I try to pick characters that are relatively simple. So I do have a list of Japanese kanji characters that you would typically learn in, first grade of elementary school or second grade. And I look at them and try to figure out how I can knit them. Are they, symmetrical? Because double knitting, symmetrical
Right.
characters will be easier to knit. Um, so I do have a list, but I pick and choose the characters, and each character has meanings. Now, it's alphabets has no meanings usually, but Chinese or Japanese characters, they're kind of like emoji,
Right.
it's
It's like a
like
word.
graphic
Right.
logogram. So
And then when you work with that, do you make like is it predominantly coasters or you turn them into scarves or something like something other? Like how do you work with them?
yeah, coaster would be the easiest way to actually, it's a great way to make a swatch. So I have a lot of coasters as a starting point, and I do have coaster patterns for sale on
Right.
Ravelry and Lovecraft too. So coasters and beer cozies, and I also made some hat designs.
Mm-hmm.
Hats are also popular for double knitting because it's
Right.
very thick, warm, and you can easily reverse it. Right now, I'm working on a scarf design uh, because scarf is also very uh, good for reversible knits.
Right.
So
How do
yeah,
you pick your
mostly accessories.
colors? How do you pick your colors? Do you have like favorite colors or do you just like how do you pick for each particular project?
So I usually let these language speak to me. So for example, this one is river.
Hmm.
And when I think of a river, I think I see water and lighter colors. And this one's grass, so grass is green.
Right.
Uh, so I let the language speak to me, and the colors that I visualize, I try to pick.
Right. Let me ask you different things. So you started knitting in like 2010 or 11 something, right?
Uh-huh.
Before that, like back in Japan, like during your childhood or in your teen years, was there anything creative, crafty that you've been doing?
You know, my mother's a knitter. Um, so when I was growing up, I I have seen my mother knit, but she wasn't as crazy as I am right now. But she did have yarn, and in Japan as a kid, you play, do you know Cat's Cradle?
Yeah.
Yeah. Uh, Kids in Japan do play with strings. So I was familiar with strings and yarns, but I never imagined I would actually take up knitting
How's
until,
your mom reacting to the fact that you're a knitwear designer now?
oh, she's super excited. And
Is
she's
she
my,
surprised a little bit?
I guess so, but she knows I've been knitting for many, well, 10 years.
Right.
And she was excited that I was knitting. So I think
Have
it's
she
a
ever knitted any of your designs?
yes, she's actually my test knitter too.
That's so amazing. That's so
So when
great.
I have a problem finding enough test knitters,
Oh,
I
mom.
I call my mom.
That's the sweetest thing ever. Talk a little bit about um, your cooking career. So I'm
Mhm.
obsessed with all your ramen recipes. I'm actually like studying them, and I'm like, oh my god, what's this egg? Why is it purple or why is it blue? And like, oh, look, you just cut it and it's regular. How did you
Uh-huh.
start with ramen, and like, how do you come up with all these different recipes? And do you have a favorite?
Um, well, it's I don't have a career, so
I'm joking.
don't send me like business ideas, your audience. But when I was living in New York City, there are hundreds of ramen shops in New York.
Right.
Um, so I didn't make ramen by myself. I would always go to restaurants to eat ramen. But when I left New York to Memphis, Memphis has maybe three or four ramen shops, and not all the places are great, or they have the varieties I'm looking for. So
Right.
I started making my own broth. And I don't make the actual noodles. I buy noodles from a store, but I make my own broth
Mhm.
from like chicken or pork or fish. So I'm really into making broth.
Do you make
And
like a huge pot and then just use it like for a few days?
yeah, yeah, I have a slow cooker that's also a pressure cooker. So
Right.
I cook for hours and hours to get all the, tasty
Flavors.
broth. Hmm.
Do you feel like it's connected, like it's the same part of creative process in you that's knitting? Like is it very similar?
Yes.
Way you design the ramen bowl is the way you
Yeah.
design the
Very much so, yeah. So I do sometimes follow a recipe, but I also make my own changes. I improvise, and I'm
right.
like, what would happen if I did this? How would that affect the taste? And that's very much similar to the designing process.
It's not half a bad idea for you to start writing those recipes down and publish a book. Just saying, just another idea for another side business.
Okay.
Um, let's talk about cats. So your name basically has your favorite cat, like from that passed away, right? Like 5 years ago,
Yeah, yeah.
Nikko.
So Yeah,
And
Duke
now
is my
you,
own name. Nikko is the name of the cat. Uh, he's actually on the picture in the back.
and now you started to go to like do foster care for kittens. How did
Uh-huh.
that happen? Like, how did you go from having one cat to like having different cat every week?
Uh, so my cat Nico and I also had another cat, Sasha. They both passed away more than 5 years ago. So for 5 years, I didn't have any pets. Um, and in New York, it's kind of hard to live with a pet unless you live in a very big apartment.
Right.
Uh, but I moved to Memphis last year, and we moved to a bigger house. And so I was kind of ready to have animals in my house, but I wasn't quite ready to be committed to one single a life.
Right.
And my brother-in-law has a girlfriend who works at a Memphis zoo. So she's an animal person, and uh, she was fostering cats last year. So I
Right.
was inspired by her and started contacting my local animal shelter and became registered as a cat foster volunteer.
Do you feel sad every time you have to let the cat go? Do you feel like you want to adopt them
Mm,
all?
a little. Yeah, the first one was the hardest when
Right.
I had to say bye to the first one. But this
Oh.
is this is my fifth one. I fostered five cats, and he has a sister who's a little bit more shy, so she's staying away from me right now. But they're about 2 months old, 2.5 months old, and kittens are so cute, you know.
He's very cute.
So yeah, I'm really enjoying it.
Do they ever mess with your yarn?
Yes. They they eat my yarn, they eat my interchangeable needles. So a lot of them are destroyed.
It's funny
But
because I have three cats and two of them never touch anything. Like they, like one of
hmm
my cats can lie on top of my Shetland lace, and I don't have heart palpitations when I see that. Like very
Good.
gentle. And then there is Tingles, and
Yeah.
Tingles manages to like get onto the upper shelf in my library and take some ball of yarn and then chew it up all over, like spread it evenly all over the floor. Or I start putting all my knitting on top of the piano just because I thought this is some place where it's going to be safe until I
Right.
found Tingles sleeping on top of my piano, on
Yeah.
top of my knitting, on top of my test knit. So it's like
Yeah.
I'm always trying to be creative of how to hide my yarn and my knitting.
hmm It's
Tell
so
me,
cute when they sleep on your own knits.
well, it
Uh,
is, and it's a little bit. You feel like you have to remove them very carefully so their
yeah.
little claws don't catch
Uh-huh.
what they're sleeping on.
Right.
Um, you also, how many marathons you ran?
So I have run a full marathon 6 times, but I've done many more other half marathons and smaller races.
When did you start running? Like when was it something you
Uh,
started in Japan or is it like an American thing?
no, in America, in Michigan. Around the same time I started knitting, I needed a hobby living in Michigan, especially during the colder months.
Right.
And I don't run in the snow, but if it's not snowing, winter or cooler weather is great for marathons.
Right.
Uh,
So do you find like now that you're in Memphis, it's easier to train because it's warmer? No,
no,
it's
it's
humid. It's hot.
hotter. Yeah, it's hot and humid. And in fact, I just signed up for a marathon in Memphis in December. So I started training this week, but yesterday was like 85 degrees with 80% humidity. It was hell.
How is it like to feel the difference, like from Michigan to Memphis? How do you adapt?
Well, you get used to it, I'm sure. Growing up in Japan, Japan's well, weather in Tokyo is similar to Memphis. So in the summer, it's
It's not that
so
long,
hot and humid.
right?
Uh, and when I used to go back to Japan, the summer there was excruciating, unbearable. But now I live in Memphis, which is similar. So
So it's not that bad actually, right?
yeah.
Um, Talk about like when you design some of your patterns, you posted them as free patterns, right? But you are a full-time designer. Do you
Mhm.
feel like it's your way of giving back to community? Like, why free patterns? Why not sell them?
Yeah, it is my way to giving back to the community. Um, and this, my very first beer cozy design, I didn't really think of monetizing from this design. So I just wanted to give it out for free. And it's a marketing tool too, you know. If it's
Right.
free, more people will download it and look at it. So it's my own way of marketing to let the world know that I exist as a
Right.
double knitting designer.
Do you find it like very difficult to break into the world of designers, like to make a name for yourself, or were people like very welcoming and like just because they like you, they would try to support you and buy patterns? Like, how did you find that whole process?
Mm, it's very easy to get compliments from people. People get excited and are impressed about your designs, but that doesn't directly go to sales,
Right.
you know, and not it's still not many people are used to paying for pattern, right? So because there are so many free patterns out there. Um, but yeah, I'm still trying to uh, reach out to as many people as possible to for them
Well,
to
I wanna invite you to use one more marketing tool. So recently
uh,
we opened a new Facebook group called Knitters Gonna
that's
Knit.
gonna knit. Yeah.
And there's like only one rule, that you have to be nice to others, and we actually encourage designers to post their patterns, and it's been
Oh.
very interesting and it's been successful for many. Like, there's a lot of yarn dyers who advertise their yarn, there are a lot of designers that post even test calls or their pattern releases, and it's sort of like it's growing at some exponential rate. We actually were like very surprised at how fast it's growing, but I
Mm-hmm.
think it's because everybody like mutually benefits, because the designers get the new audience, the yarn dyers get some collaborations with designers, you know, there's like the testers who wanna participate. So it's actually like very interesting. So I invite you to join us also.
Mm-hmm. Great. Yeah, I'm a member of Knitters Gonna Knit,
Yeah.
so I'll
So
start
post.
posting. Yeah.
Your quiet number, start posting.
Yeah. You
How
know,
do you
not many Facebook pages welcome those kind of
It's
posts, you
actually,
know?
yeah,
So
it's very frustrating. Because, like yesterday, so I don't know if you saw, I did this reel with my dad where he was carrying umbrella above my head and I was knitting because it was knit in public day, but it was raining. So I called
mm-hmm.
him. I was like, "Listen, I really want to go knit on the street, but you have to help me out. You have to carry my yarn and hold the umbrella." So we filmed this a little bit and we made it, and I made it into a reel. And I tried posting it, just one picture. I tried posting it and wishing everybody happy knit and public yarn day
Mm-hmm.
in this big knitting group, and it got rejected because it wasn't showing the exact project or asking
Uh-huh.
exact question. You know, so it's like there is so many like
Yeah.
groups with all these regulations that it's getting like really frustrating. And my feeling
Yeah.
is always that like we are part of the community and we should actually support each other, help each other grow, help the
Mm-hmm.
designers to become big name designers, you know, and help the yarn dyers to continue their thing. So it's, you know, it
That's great.
like I like this group just for that, you know, because it
Mm-hmm.
allows all of that.
And your dad is very cute.
Thank you.
And so
He's
are your sons. Oh my God.
well. I actually told Daniel, my oldest, that you commented on him, you know, being my model, but he's in California right now climbing pelots. So I was like, listen, you can
uh,
join us.
Post more pictures. Men in shawls,
Right, we'll do that.
shirtless.
Do you so you're very involved in the like now it's Pride month and you very involved in the, you know, supporting the all the genders and the, you know,
Hmm.
so majority of your, not majority of your designs, but many of your designs are about gay, biracial, all the, you know, is
Hmm.
that how do you market that? Like, do you specifically market that, or is it just the community supports you just because you're part of the community?
How do I market that? I usually use tags on Instagram, hashtags, or I go to like gay or LGBTQ Ravelry groups or Facebook groups to let them know that about these designs.
And you only
Um,
sell patterns, you don't sell the finished products, right? You don't like,
right.
okay.
Yeah, a lot of them are interested in buying the actual knitted objects, but I don't have time for that. So,
Right, right. um I mean, it might be an idea to hire the knitters just to, you know,
hmm.
sell the finished products actually. um Talk a little bit about how the life of a knitter different. I mean, it's not even because you didn't knit back in Japan, but like a life of a gay man, a lot, you know,
Hmm.
in Japan versus America. Like, do you find your life here more liberating? Do you find that you have more opportunities, like more freedom? Like, how's America treating you?
It's definitely easier for me to be who I am in the US.
Right.
Um, in the US, they respect your individuality, personality, or uniqueness. In Japan, it's more, you know, you have to be like everyone else. When you stand out as being unique, it's kind of sometimes you get dinged. Um, but it's changing in Japan too. LGBTQ rights and movements are getting more attention in the media, and there have been some legislation change and talk about things like that. So it's changing. And I also want to mention there's no religious bias or religious hang up, if you will, in Japan. Japanese people are not Christians or Muslims. Most of Japanese people identify as atheist, or
Oh, interesting. I didn't know that.
they don't have a particular religion that they believe in.
Right.
In other words, they celebrate Christmas and they celebrate different
Ramadan and the whole thing, whatever.
cultural, yeah. So there's not a lot of hatred either in Japan.
Right.
So in that way, it's not so bad to live in Japan as a gay man,
Do
but
you like,
still.
so you came, like I've discovered recently when I was watching one of your interviews that you, like, I came here in the 90s for my MBA and you came in the 90s for your MBA, so we have like that thing in common.
Hmm.
Do you find that you miss that IT part of your life, that, like, you know, skills that you learn in the MBA, or do you feel like suddenly that it's this freedom of create that's what you were missing all your life?
Yeah, I don't miss it at all.
That's
And,
wonderful.
MBA is all about, well, a lot of it is about entrepreneurship, having your own business and how to run your own business. So I'm actually enjoying, marketing my own products and doing some accounting and finances and different aspects of business is all related to my academic background. So I'm enjoying it.
I mean, the
And
education is just never wasted because you can
yeah,
always, like, even if you think you're not working in the field that you studied for, you still learn so much along the way
right.
that you'll use those skills in other things,
Yeah. And in terms of IT, I was a project manager in the IT industry for many years, but I don't I don't really miss corporate world so much. Most of your day is about making PowerPoint presentations and running meetings and writing progress reports. It's repetitive and you can find some creativity in it, but oftentimes you're just supposed to do what you're told to do. So it's more liberating to have your own business and uh, yeah, work on it.
So talk a little bit about what's coming up, like what you have planned for this year, what you
Hmm.
working on, like what's being tested, what you're thinking about.
So what I'm working on right now is this scarf. It's called Nature Scarf, and it's double knitting, and it's being test knitted right now. But it'll probably be out in a month or so. And I am also working on, this is kind of new to me. There's no language or symbols, but this is just a pure scarf
It's so pretty.
design. It's, well, I have a tentative name. It's kimono gara scarf. Uh, so kimono gara, gara means patterns. So each of the pattern is reminiscent of like kimono fabric.
And this
Um,
is double knitted.
yeah, this is also double knitted,
Huh.
and it's completely, truly reversible. It's
Right.
exactly the same front and back.
That's gorgeous.
Yeah, the inspiration of this came from this middle part that I, I finished doing the language part, and I
Mhm.
just created this sort of like a filler in
Right.
between, but I actually ended up really liking these patterns. So I decided to make the standalone scarf design. So
Right.
this will probably be out maybe in a few months.
When you like, so like you said that you're doing your own marketing, your own accounting, do you do your own planning? Do you like sit down 1st of January and you're like, okay, this year I'm gonna work from January 1st till March 3rd on this design? Like how far ahead do you
Um,
plan, or how often the inspiration strikes?
I know I'm probably a MBA failure. I know I should have had my own business plan and plan ahead, for the year, for 5 years, but I don't really do that. I only plan for maybe the next 3 months, and I try to release a pattern, one pattern a month. So I'm sort of getting used to that life cycle of releasing a pattern. But
Right.
no, I
Are
don't
you,
have a full year plan.
are you like a one project kind of guy, or do you have like 17 projects lying in 17 different project bags and you humping between them? Like,
I usually have one big project and a few smaller, like traveling projects, like socks or hats.
And do you need projects of other designs of other designers, or is it all
Yes.
exclusively yours?
No, I love knitting other designers. So I love test knitting. I always learn new things from them,
Right.
not just knitting techniques, but photography and how they express or how they write their instructions and things like that. So I love trying other designers' patterns.
And let's just talk for a second about your husband. How is he with your knitting career? Like, is he, like, especially when you left your job in
Hmm.
the corporate world and decided to become independent designer, like, what was his reaction? What's his reaction for you, like, when you suddenly started knitting? What's your reaction what's his reaction to, like, you suddenly running marathons, like all this, like, things that take a lot of time and a lot of you time, basically? Like, how does he
Uh-huh.
feel?
Yeah. Well, he and I are very different in terms of hobbies and taste in music. We don't overlap very much, so we've always done our own things separate from our relationship. So in terms of, you know, me spending a lot of time on my hobbies, it's not much of an issue. When I decided to make this my own business, um, we had a long discussion about how can we make that work in our relationship and in our finances.
Right.
But we are fortunate that one of us, not both of us, need to work full time and support the family. We're very fortunate that we can just live on my husband's income,
Right.
so I don't really have to make tons of money doing this.
Have he ever shown any interest in learning how to knit, or have you ever
No,
suggested for him to learn how to knit?
no. Why would I share this joy?
Right, and yarn.
My yarn is mine.
That's exactly how I feel. um, Talk a little bit about your favorite festivals besides Vogue Knitting Live. Have you been to other festivals, or is there like a dream festival for you to visit, like, now that they
Yeah,
reopening?
so last year, right before the pandemic, I went to Stitches West. Stitches is also a big event similar to Vogue Knitting. Um, and to be perfectly honest, when I was living in New York, I thought I wasn't very attracted to Stitches because oftentimes it was uh, held in the suburbs or smaller cities.
Mm-hmm.
So New York City, Vogue Knitting was
Times
everything.
Square.
Yeah, why would I go to Connecticut to um, see yarn? New York City
Right.
had everything. That's what I thought. But now that I live outside of New York City, Stitches is a wonderful event. I found out by going to Stitches West, and I'm also a regular at virtual Stitches events. And there's such welcoming, inclusive, beautiful people running the events. So I'm a big fan of Stitches now.
Have you been to Rhinebeck yet?
I did go to Rhinebeck 2 years ago, 2019. Yeah.
I was there 2 years ago. We could have
Oh,
met.
really? Oh, yeah, we could
Yeah.
have. Yeah.
Next time we'll plan it.
Yeah, I'm planning on going back there this year.
Well, if are they on? They supposed to be
I
on, right?
think so. The details have not been
Released.
publicized yet, but I think they are going to
Well,
do.
if they're gonna hold it, I'm coming as well, so we'll meet there for a beer.
Okay. Yeah.
Um, have you ever been outside of the US in any knitting festivals?
Let me think. Oh, when I went back to Japan in 2019, I went to Tokyo Yarn Crawl. So it wasn't a festival, but you visit different yarn stores in Tokyo and collect stamps. So I did that, and it was a lot of fun.
How do you compare like the quality of yarn? Because I just bought some hair from Japan actually. Like, how do you find like when you went on the yarn crawl there? Like, how do you find it in comparison to New York? With
You
like indie
know,
dyers and all the like, is there better variety, same variety, or like how do you find it?
I I can't say it's better there. Most of the indie dyed yarns are imported.
Okay,
So I cannot think of many indie dyers in Japan other than, those big companies like Noro.
right.
Um, but Japan has several yarn companies, but I don't, I cannot really say they're better than the US or European yarn. And
How do you
wool
like when you
is,
go? Yeah, when you go to the yarn festival, how do you stop yourself from just buying everything? Like, how do you plan it? Do you have some system and like, okay, I'm gonna spend that much, or I'm gonna buy that many skeins, or you just go and like, oh, pretty, like you're coming home with me?
I often come back more than I expect. So yeah, I don't usually plan,
And when you
but
buy
I
yarn, do you buy yarn with like certain project in mind for it, or do you just buy
no.
yarn because it's the gorgeous skein and you just must have it?
Yeah, I buy it because it's pretty. And I don't buy sweater quantities. I usually buy one skein of here and there, so I can just try it and make a swatch.
Okay.
And if I like it, I can go back and buy more.
Okay, so
So,
I'll ask you last question. But talking about sweater quantity, that gorgeous green sweater that you're wearing on my promotional picture,
oh, it's
yes,
this
that
one.
one. Tell me a little bit about it, the story
So,
behind it.
so this was a knit along. Design is by Shirley Payton,
Mhm.
who's a New York City designer. She was holding, I think she has a design tutorial book,
Mhm.
Knitting KD, Knitting with, I forgot the name of the book. I'm sorry, Shirley, uh, but this knit along was to celebrate the 10-year anniversary of the book publishing.
Okay.
So a friend of mine, Mari Tobita, she's also a designer, but she's good friends with Shirley. So she told me about this cowl, and I decided to participate in the cowl. Um, so it's cabling, as you can see,
Right.
and I'm not very good at cabling, but I decided to challenge myself to this.
But that
And
wasn't was that your first sweater ever, or you've done sweaters before?
I've done sweaters before, but not that many, maybe five,
Okay.
less than 10.
Do you like the whole idea of knit along? Like, do you find that it makes knitting like all more fun because it's you can ask questions, you always have like support there, you meet new people, you get inspired by other
Yes,
people.
yes, yes. So, yeah, this Shirley Payton cow was wonderful. They had moderators who
Mhm.
will answer questions, and they also had like bi-weekly Zoom meeting mixers where you can meet with other participants, and they also had a forum where you can post whips and finished objects. So I enjoyed it very much.
And how long did it take you to knit it?
This one, I actually won a prize of the fastest finisher. So I started in December and I finished in February. So 2 months.
Oh my God, seriously. You're amazing. Well, maybe one day we can organize a knit along for one of your patterns and we can teach double knitting to all the knitters out there.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That's actually another good way to market your designs.
Right.
Well, thank you so much for joining me, and thank you for answering all my questions. And I hope we get to meet at one of the knitting festivals this year in real life. I would love to meet with you.
Mm-hmm.
We'll have
Yeah,
a
see
beer
you in
and talk
Rhinebeck.
about the double knitting.
Yeah,
Thank
thank
you.
you. Thanks for having me.
Okay, it was nice to see you.